As promised, I want to talk about the void. Let's get into it. Now, for those of you who were following me on the Hebrew Mystic Healer, I did talk about what the void was as far as in comparison with the abyss. Now, for those of you that are new and have never followed me before prior to this channel, I want to spend a little bit of time explaining what the void is and my personal experience with the void. And also different records that I have found from clients having to do with the void as well. This is basically, in a nutshell, what the void is. The void is the point before the light coming out of the darkness. The void is the 0 point frequency. The void is potential consciousness, potential chaos, potential creation. When what we would call creation happened is the emanation out of sound, vibration, and light into physical matter, or into what could be physical matter at a dense vibration. Of course, in other realities or other realms, it's not as physical as it would be here, but it would still have its own formation. So there's always some sort of formation when you're dealing with light, sound, and vibration. There's always some sort of formation going on, whether it's visible to the naked eye at this 3D level or not. So I want to make that clear. Now, as far as what the void is and how it's different, is the void is prior to that formation. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is that the void does have realms. So it's not just this empty black vacuum. And I want to say also that I do not subscribe to the NASA interpretation of void space or voids in general. So you can just throw that right out, because I'm not going to lie into any of that. So just putting that out there. Now, I align more to the holographic cosmic egg paradigm. And as far as the void is concerned, I have seen it for myself as being more like the womb of a woman, but at a much different dimensional and vibrational level. So when you are a baby in your mother's womb at the 3D level, you're in there, and if you were to be able to look in there, you would see that it's dark and there's empty space in there, but it's contained within the womb itself. And there are some, indentations and some curves and some, there is a structure to it. Okay. Well, it's the same thing with the void. It's not just this complete vacuum emptiness like people think. So when I had my soul memory of the void, what I saw was something actually very similar to what people say void space looks like, but it's inside of a womb. So it's actually very hard to describe, and it's really hard to describe the void for those who don't know what the void is, because if you're from the void, communicating to people who are not from the void is very difficult. So let me try to explain this the best way I can. It's like a primordial womb with chambers in it, and each chamber is a different realm. And within those realms, there are different beings, different consciousness, but they don't have the same structure as the multiverse of formation of light, sound, and vibration. So it's totally different, but it's kind of like this swirling, constantly fluctuating type of consciousness forming. So when I've seen myself in the void before I emanated out, which I do explain that story on my old channel, Dissolving Hebrew Mystic Healer. I haven't explained it on this one yet. But before I emanated out, I was actually a many-headed black hydra. And the other beings that I saw there, I mean, you had like giant, like tree-like creatures. You had like giant insect-like creatures. There's like, they're very like Typhonian, very, Titan-like beings that don't really, it's like they can shapeshift and become these different forms. And some of them just, they don't follow the same universal laws. And so some of them may have like multiple arms or multiple eyes, or they may just look, they would be monstrous to anybody that would go and see into the void. And some of them can just look like this big like conglomeration of moving like faces and hands and things of that nature. there's no real, there's no rules essentially in the sense of what we would think of rules, you know, like universal laws at this level. That doesn't exist in the void. Now it has its own realms and its own laws, but it's totally different than what you would think in the multiverse. The void does not have light in the same way. It's almost like, because it's not from the light of formation of the consciousness extending out. It's really, I'm trying my best to explain this. It's like, it's not what people think. It's just not this black nothingness. There is existence there. There are realms there. It is like essentially a womb where we emanate out into a different type of multiversal reality. But it is not just emptiness or nothing, because no thing is still something, right? There are many voids. That's another thing people aren't really ready to hear. There's not just one. There's many. The multiverse itself is contained in a void too. So void is anywhere where the matter of formation and the consciousness of formation does not exist. So what are void beings? Void beings are those who pre-existed before consciousness emanated out into the multiverse of light, sound, and vibration. So any being or any consciousness that existed before then would be considered of the void. So Titans, a lot of what people will call now demons, although they have their own different species, a lot of elemental spirits, some celestials originally came out of the void as well, and then then incarnated in the celestial realms within, the multiverse and specific universes first. So that's why they'd be considered a celestial, but their soul could still be from the void. So you have those as well. Some infernals too, so souls can essentially incarnate in many different places. So I really feel, guys, like I shouldn't be doing this video during Mercury retrograde. Like I feel like I am like having such a hard time communicating what my experience was and what's in like my akashic records and what's in my mind and what's in my heart, and trying to explain is really difficult. So I'm probably going to do another video. I'm trying to make this as clear as possible, and I feel like I'm making it more confusing for people. But essentially, you have everything is contained within the void. Let me just keep it simple, okay? And consciousness, or the potential for consciousness, reality, pre-exists before the manifestation of reality experiencing itself subjectively, okay? So within that potential is the void, and that is really the best way I could explain it. And within that potential is its own existence that is not regulated by the same structures and laws. The way it looks, the one I'm from, the way it looks is kind of like, it's like dark, but there's like these small little clusters of like purple and blue, like really tiny purple and blue, like faded lights. It kind of, if you want me to be honest, guys, like the best way I could explain it, for those of you who have seen Doctor Strange, the first Doctor Strange movie, which by the way, the Doctor Strange movies have a lot of truth about like the structure of consciousness and dimensions and stuff in there. So I just want to put that out there. As far as the multiverse as well and how that operates. However, I digress. The realm that Dormammu came from, that looks very similar to what the void looks like based on my experience. Not identical by any means, but if I could give you guys an example, that looks very similar. Okay. In fact, I really think that they really vilified that particular being, and he is actually supposed to be like a primordial, I'm not saying that in like with the storyline that what he was doing was, beneficial to beings, because like he was like what I would call, you have the soul makers and the soul takers. I did a video on this. There's all different types of soul types and subcategories. I did a video on this on my previous channel. I'm probably going to try to revamp that on this channel as well, just for those of you who haven't seen it. But I talk about how there are soul makers and soul takers, and a lot of those beings, at least from what I've seen, they come from the void. So you have those that create souls, and you have those that absorb souls back in, recycle. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because I know people are going to have a lot of questions on that. So I'm going to have to do that video. But essentially, all consciousness really derives from the void, but not all souls are from the void, because we have generations of consciousness expanding out. So just because everything is contained within the void, like consciousness, and everything expands out from there, does not mean that every individual autonomous soul is specifically from the void. Just to make that clear, like some beings are soul stars, some beings are literally illuminators. That's what they're here to do. You have some that are from like other dimensions, like quantum and ultra and things of that nature. You have some that are like strictly for structures, like universal mainframes. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. It gets a little like, it's a little sci-fi, okay? But it's really, it's hard to kind of explain and summarize in one video. But I want to make clear that the void and the abyss are not the same thing. So the abyss, actually every universe has one. Again, talked about this on my other channel. I'm going to link those videos in the comment section below in case you guys want to check out some of those older videos on my other channel too. But I will have more videos coming, and I'm going to be talking more about this in more depth. But I digress. So the abyss is actually like a holding space, a dark holding space where souls go because their vibration is so low they don't really belong anywhere else. Some beings are sent there as a sentence, whether it's like justified or not. I mean, I really can't say. But there are beings that get sentenced there, and there are beings that just go there because there's no other place for them. They're usually very parasitic. What people really mistake for demons are actually not. They're actually these are like soul-sucking, very low vibrational like entities, like very, very low vibrational. And some of them did not start out that way. Some of them started out as totally different levels of energy, and they just went through that, you know, regression. And anyway, it's a holding cell. It is not the same as the void. The void is where everything emanated out from. The abyss is where, you know, trash gets dumped, essentially. I'm not saying like that every being there is worthless or trash or anything, but I'm trying to give you guys a good illustration here. It's usually at the bottom of the universal egg mainframe. So you have like the omega at the top, you know, the alpha omega at the top, and then you have the abyss at the bottom of the egg, under like the underworld and the infernal realms. And then you have the earth realms in the center, and you have the celestial realms going up all the way up until the omega point. But I digress. Now, if you guys have specific questions about the void that you would like me to answer in a follow-up video, maybe after Mercury retrograde, then I will definitely answer them. But I can tell you that void beings and those that are from the void are going to really intuitively know it, and they're going to have some sort of latent memory of that, whether they're aware of it or not. It's in there somewhere. So for me, like I said, that Hydra-like being, when I emanated out, I fragmented myself. I emanated out as like a feathered rainbow serpent type dragon, and then from there, that's when I actually created like soul stars. Like I was one of those soul creators, and with my other kin, my other, like, you know, rest of my soul tribe, the rest of like my soul family, we were helping to create universes and things of that nature. Like I have that in my memory. It was the primordials that created the multiverse, and there were different types of primordials that were involved in that process. The celestials were then the ones that came from the primordials. They were their children, and they were the ones that were responsible for illuminating and creating order within those particular universes. And the infernals, some of them were primordials that went into the infernal realm. Like most infernals are not celestial. They're either linked to the earth realms, or like a lot of times, like they'll start incarnating in the earth realms, and then they'll incarnate in the infernal realms, or they'll incarnate in the infernal realms, and then they'll, you know, incarnate in the earth realms. But we can incarnate all over, just to be clear. Like, I mean, it even talks about that in Buddhism and Hinduism, okay? If we're going to go off of like a lot of where these concepts originally came from. So we can incarnate up and down the spiral, But as far as like the initial, you know, the initial expansion is what I would call the great expansion. The initial expansion out, as far as that is concerned, most of the infernals like are primordial. Not all of them, but most of them. That's something that I feel doesn't get talked about, and I think a lot of people link the primordials with the beings from the abyss, and it's totally different. Even people on the left-hand path will confuse the abyss with the void. Now, the abyss can also represent what we repress into the shadow, and to the point where it gets pushed way down into the abyss. So if we're talking about it in that context, then we absolutely should be doing work and stuff with that. But I just wanted to let you guys know they are not the same thing. And a lot of people confuse the two, and we'll talk about them interchangeably. They're not the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the video at that point. And again, I feel like I wasn't very clear because of Mercury retrograde. It's not a good time to do this video. It's kind of a complex topic. So if you guys have any follow-up questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below, and I will definitely do like a part 2, and I will go more in depth on this. So I hope that this did bring some clarity. Thank you guys for tuning in. Take care. Check out my website, thetantricdragoness.com, to book a private akashic reading or any other reading. Also, akashic portraits, consultations, shamanic journeys, starseed charts, primordial dragon fire healing, and much more. You can also subscribe to Patreon to learn how to do a lot of this yourself through various templates I've designed. Activate Diamond Consciousness, Activate the Black Flame, Journey the Underworld, Tantric Healing and BDSM, Astral Projection and Power, Shields, Cloaks, Wards, Learning Light Language, Exclusive and Premiere Readings, Soul Fragment Retrieval, Advanced Ancestral Work, Creating Your Own Shamanic Sanctuary, and much more. Thanks for your support, and stay tuned for future videos.